If you're a media buyer or you run paid advertising, then one of the main questions that you will ever ask yourself is how can you get your clients results every single time? And that was a question that plagued me for a very long time within my career as a media buyer, figuring out how to run paid advertisements that I know could confidently get my clients results. So lock in for today, take out your notebooks, get ready to dive into one of the most instrumental trainings and or videos that you will ever watch on this entire topic. And by the end of it, you'll know how to get your clients results every single time, no matter the niche, no matter the industry. If you run paid advertisements on any of the social media platforms, you will be able to get your clients results. So let's jump into it. All right, so diving straight into this, I'm gonna give you a scenario. Let's just say hypothetically, right now, you just brought on a brand new client. What do? How do you get a lay of the land and figure out how you can be able to produce this client the result, regardless of the industry that you're running the ads for, right? Whether that's local services, whether that's for e-commerce, whether that's for online digital products, coaching, consulting companies, whatever they're selling, whether it's a product and or a service, this process is the same no matter whatever the scenario is. And so I'll give you guys like the breakdown, or at least the thought process that was going through my head when I was first getting started within the first year or two of media buying. And I was actually running advertisements for local car dealerships at that given point in time. And, I didn't know left from right. Like, the problem is when you are first getting into media buying, this is a skill. But a lot of the time, most media buyers that are button pushers, right? If you're a button pusher Sam, and you don't want to be a button pusher Sam, then you have to understand how business works holistically. You cannot just look at your part of the business, which is marketing, as one isolated function. That means that you, as a marketer, your actions affect the entire business. It doesn't just affect one. It doesn't just affect the leads, the lead quality, whatever, right? Because whenever I had a client that said, oh, hey, the lead quality is trash, or whenever I'd have a client that, would say, oh, advertising just doesn't work, I almost believed them because I just didn't know any better. And because I didn't understand how business truly worked, and my clients obviously didn't know how business worked, I just was in a place where I wasn't sure how I would be able to deliver results. So there's kind of that valley. And over time, until you get some wins, even if you get your first few wins, you may have gotten your first few case studies and you're like, man, maybe I just got lucky, right? But there's a process that you have to go through and learn. And once you kind of see the business holistically with advertising, you can get to the point where you go from a button pusher, somebody who just doesn't understand how marketing affects the entire business, to somebody who is an absolute chad at running advertisements and you know how to get results every single time. So that's the whole goal here. So first and foremost is understand that media buying and running paid advertisement is not an isolated function of the business. So what you run and what you come up with on the front end will affect the sales process, will affect delivery, and you need to know every single step of the process to turn a stranger into a customer. When you understand how to turn a stranger into a customer, that makes the rest of the process extremely easy. So the first and foremost thing that you want to start off with when you're getting into a brand new ad account is understanding the core objective. What's the key objective that you're trying to solve for this specific client, right? What type of result are you driving for them? Is it cost per purchase, right? Are you driving sales for the e-commerce business? Is it booked calls? Is it leads, right? What type of event are you specifically optimizing for? And that's gonna give you a rundown of how the business functions overall. And it's slightly nuanced. It's a little bit different from, different types of businesses, because let's say, for example, an e-commerce business functions a little bit differently from a local service-based business, but it's fundamentally the same. So I'm gonna give you a high-level overview of these blocks here. So this is a typical sales process, and you can basically interchange this out depending on the client that you're working with, but I just want to give you guys the framework and the thought process behind it so that you understand that there is a process that you go through. Because the best way to think about this is that paid advertisements is basically a funnel, and your job as the media buyer is to get as much eyeballs and attention into this conversion process. So that's why you have to look at the business holistically, because when somebody says, hey, the lead quality is trash, well, you have to think about the business from a whole, because what even is a qualified lead, right? In terms of a qualified lead, there has to be metrics that break that down so that there's a measurable and tangible result that you can improve, right? And that's what we call marketing qualified lead. I'll get to that in just a little bit here, but that is an important metric and number that people should know. So think about it like this. You're basically bucketing as many people into this funnel as possible, and the problem occurs after you get the attention, because this here is basically the goal is to be able to convert as much of this attention over here into dollars at the very end. And with the business, there's multiple levers that go into this. So I'll give you guys the scenario from just thinking about this from a local service business, because more than likely you're going to be working with those type of people, especially in the beginning. So you have the ad, right, which is what you're responsible for creating. What do people see on the front end, right? So this is one of the key components and levers that gets people to then get a click, right? So when people click onto your ad, they visit a landing page, right, where they then collect lead information. And a lead is simply just somebody's name, phone number, and email, right, that is interested in the product or service that you have to sell. So just to quantify that definition, it is a lead. Also, the other thing is with paid advertising is you are spending money on ads, right? So inherently, you're paying these platforms to get eyeballs onto your ads. So ads work 100% of the time. Like if anyone ever hits you with that, just be like, look, there's some other problems that we have to fix within the business in order to make this work. Advertising works 100% of the time because you are paying for eyeballs. That's why it's called paid ads. You are paying for people's attention. The question is, how efficient is the process that's put in place to convert that attention into a sale? So this is why you have to know this entire process. So somebody clicks on the ad, they turn into a lead, and then they then have a phone call to then become a booked appointment, right? Let's say that this is a local car dealership. They call up the lead. They're interested in a car. Hey, Mr. Johnson, saw that you were interested in our offer to help you get approved for a vehicle. You know, when can you come on into the dealership and check out this car? Oh, okay, cool. You can come in at 2 p.m. later today. Perfect. And then you have now that they've booked the appointment, they show up to the consultation, and then once they have received an offer, then you have a deal closed. So that overall goes multiple steps beyond just running a good ad. A good ad is not enough to just get a person results, because if there are inefficiencies within the business, you can run a level 10 ad. You could be the best at making these advertisements, but if they have a level 2 sales process, right, that person is not going to be able to print. And especially if you've worked with different types of customer avatars, in the beginning, you're going to run into a lot of people that have a poor sales process because you can't charge a whole lot of money, and or you're trying to do some freelance work, some freelance gigs, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you as a media buyer have to be more competent and understand this process to be able to guide your client into what needs to happen in order for them to make money. So this is business shit. This goes beyond just like, yeah, we got like $10 cost per lead and it's doing good. And then the customer's like, wow, this lead fucking sucks. And like, in reality, they're not calling their leads fast enough. They don't have a good follow-up process. And number three, they don't have a good sales process. So we have to look at these metrics all the way through to the very end. So when you bring on that client, it's so important to know these metrics off the top of your head and see what the benchmark numbers are. Media buying is a very numbers, data, analytic driven type of work. You have to know your numbers because the numbers don't lie and you cannot refute them. Whether you're doing a good or bad job, it's night and day. Like, your numbers are tied to their return on investment. And it is your responsibility to ensure that this process is as efficient as possible. So it doesn't just, this role is not just running fancy schmancy, sexy looking ads. That's part of it. But the other part of making sure the business is optimized and making sure that they're making fucking money means that you need to know this entire process. So, you know, if this is a landing page for e-commerce, you know, there's different metrics here. So landing page, there could be add to carts, you know, there's the cost per purchase, there's the upsells, right? There's just different metrics here, and you can just interchange them because they're relatively the same process. I'm just trying to explain to you that there are levers at each point, and you will see this is like a chain. Each piece of the chain, your results is only as good as the weakest link in your chain. Best way I can put it for you. Like, if you have a hole in one of your chains and it's weak, then you better fix it, because otherwise you're not gonna make any money. So to break down the metrics that you wanna break down for your client right away, and as soon as you onboard them, you need to get these baseline metrics, right? So if they have been running ads before, then you're gonna know a little bit of these first two here. These are ad related, but these metrics here are sales related. So these are ad related and these are sales related. And I'll just break this down on what that means. Because there's advertising and there's marketing and there's sales. These are married. Like, you cannot function, marketing cannot function without sales, and sales cannot function without marketing. These two things are inherently intertwined. And you have to understand that these, again, like I was trying to explain to you in the beginning, these functions of the business do not exist independently. Like, the business is one organism, and this is like the left arm and this is the right arm. These two things need to exist in order to you know, have the thing function. So click-through rate is essentially how many people, how many impressions, right? Let's say your ad gets 1,000 impressions, right? Your CPM, cost per impression, right? How many of the 1,000 people end up clicking onto your advertisement to go to your landing page? That is your click-through rate. On average, depending on the industry that you're in, 1.5 to about 2% click-through rate. And also depending on the platform, different platforms really, you know, can change this a lot. This metric here is extremely standard, right? Like, if you aren't getting a 1.5 to 2% click-through rate, you have to have a better hook and a better creative, okay? So with that being said, when you put that into perspective, like, this is how you optimize it. And in a future video, I will break down how to write profitable and banger ads and how to tweak that, because that's another key component, right? There's multiple components of a good advertisement. What makes a good ad, right? I'll break that down in another video, but just so you know, this is the benchmark that you should be shooting for. If not, those are things that you can optimize. Opt-in rate is how many people that actually clicked on the advertisement, right? People that clicked on the advertisement, landed onto the landing page, how many of them actually turn into a lead? Okay, so that conversion rate, depending on the actual, you know, objective of the landing page, should be between 20 to 30%. And mind you guys, don't take these numbers as law. I'm giving you guys as these benchmarks. It depends on the funnel, right? But if you're running a local service-based, you know, type of sales process, that's pretty standard, right? If you guys want different type of niche breakdowns, you guys can leave a question in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to break down like niche specific like funnels. But yeah, 20 to 30% is pretty standard as an opt-in page to, you know, just a squeeze. We call it a squeeze page because there's no other options, right? On the landing page, they just fill out their name, phone number, email, and then they opt in to, you know, have the opportunity there. So then the booking rate is how many of those leads then turn into an appointment, okay? And then out of that, how many of those appointments show up to the appointment? And then out of those appointments that show up, how many of them are presented an offer? And then how many of those are then given how many of those actually then close, right? So that is a chain where all of these numbers affect the efficiency at the very end, right? So hopefully you're starting to see the correlation now, where once you get these benchmarks, and by the way, like just so you guys can have more numbers here, 25% here on the booking rate out of all leads is pretty standard. Show up rate, this should be above 60%. And then the offer rate here should be above like about 80% if you're getting qualified leads. And then close rate here should be about 30% standard, okay? It doesn't really matter what type of stuff you're selling. If you're selling any type of services and or products, that should be pretty standard for your business, okay? So with that being said, moving on, now you can see the actual correlation now, right? This is a chain. Every single piece of the chain is affected by the piece before. So if that being said, when you get a new client, you have to look and diagnose their business and their marketing and sales process, right? Their delivery process, cool. You're not in there to really like worry about that too much, right? This is your job. Make them money, right? Like, so you can start to see, okay, cool. If I'm in this process here, I need to have a benchmark standard of what their click-through rate is, what their opt-in rate is, booking rate, show rate, offer rate, close rate. These are good metrics to have. And then that breaks down into knowing what their current cost per lead is, current cost per appointment, cost per show, cost per offer, cost per acquisition, and return on ad spend. These are your holy grails as a media buyer to keep track of, okay? So when you do your reporting and you go to tell your client how everything's going, you know, these are the metrics that you go down and break down to them, right? But if you see that you go and get the numbers from them and they have like a 30% show up rate, you can be like, hey, your booking process, your appointment setting process is inefficient. And regardless of how much money we spend on ads here, we could spend more and I could do a good job there. But just to let you know, this is something that we have to fix and that we need to get this up to 60%. Okay? So this is the competitive edge. This is why this is the difference between somebody like myself who is a like paid professional versus somebody who is a button pusher Sam, right? Button pusher Sam is like, well, we have a $10 cost per lead and I'm doing my job here. Like, no, dude, like this is how, knowing this process here is how you can get paid anywhere between 10K per month per client. And then on top of that, get anywhere between a 3 to 10% of ROAS, right? Like this here is how you just fucking go crazy. Like it's hard to really compete with somebody who is this good of an expert because the competition here, if you're watching this, you're gonna fucking smoke them. The competition's low, okay? Because most people just look at the advertisement and don't really understand much else, okay? So let's say hypothetically in this scenario, like they do have a good sales process and everything's tightened up. You want to be able to make sure that you're getting marketing qualified leads, okay? So what is a marketing qualified lead? This is independent and nuanced between every single business that you run because that will depend on what type of service or product that they're selling. But we just want to make sure that we're getting the right type of people to visit the landing page, right? Because if the goal is to sell, 30 to 40-year-old moms, but we're getting people that are 18 to, 21, we're off the mark here, right? So for example, I'll give you guys context on an offer that I'm running right now, a marketing qualified lead. We're selling a coaching offer to 9-to-5ers, right? Coaching offer to 9-to-5ers, right? And we are trying to make sure that these people have 2K down, 2K to invest. They have a 650 plus credit score, and they're looking to buy within 30 days, and they know what our offer is about, TikTok Shop Affiliate. So there's a scoring system that we put in place here so that I could also work on making sure that I get them qualified leads, right? So this metric here is something that I can show them, hey, I'm doing my job as the marketer. We have good click-through rate. we're getting qualified leads, we're getting a good cost per appointment, a good cost per purchase, whatever the result that I'm optimizing for, I can take responsibility for that. So it's very important for you as the marketer to set clear guidelines for what you are in full control of, okay? This is the other thing. You have to set clear guidelines and expectations that you can control click-through and opt-in rate, okay? And then marketing qualified leads. But you cannot control the booking rate, the show-up rate, offer rate, and close rate. Those are things that you can consult on, okay? That's why if you have this additional knowledge, you're gonna be more valuable because you understand these other skills and processes within the business. So within those guidelines, and I will make future videos on how you can optimize sales processes and things like that. That goes more beyond just the media buying aspect. It's more technical in terms of sales, marketing, persuasion, things like that. Sales management, those are things that CRO, copywriting, there's other skills that you're gonna need to stack on, but that's why media buyers are valuable. You can't just run ads, right? I'm gonna hammer that into your head. You can't just run freaking ads. That is basic as shit. Media buying goes beyond that. Media buying is knowing how to make money. Media buying is knowing how to turn $1 into $4, right? So there are multiple small components that separate amateurs from actual professionals. So thinking about that, right? Make sure you have clear guidelines. Hey, I am responsible, sir, for these metrics, right? I can control my cost per lead, my click-through rate, and then I can control the marketing qualified lead. On the other hand, you are responsible for the booking rate, the show rate, and the offer rate, and the close rate. And then at the end of the day, our shared metric is going to be our cost per acquisition, which is CAC, right? And our ROAS, right? And if you're doing a good job, on average, anywhere between 3 to 5x ROAS on most things, you're going to be pretty decent. And CAC, on average, you want it to be a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you just know these numbers and you just even know these terminologies, if you know, you know. And typically somebody, when you're getting hired or when you're going through the sales process or when people are vetting you to be hired onto their team as a freelancer, as a contractor, whatever, they're going to measure you based off of these things. So again, learn these fucking metrics. They're the same for every business. It doesn't change whatever business that you're running. These are foundational. This concept here, every business has a backbone. Every business has a chain link. Every business functions this way. And it's not any different. This is the customer journey, my friend, right? Customer journey. So every customer starts off as a stranger and then eventually turns into a paying customer. But there's multiple little levers in the process that you end up pulling to make sure they convert. So that's how you really get results every single time. Okay, that on a high level, you can go in and fix every single piece. So if your click-through rate is shit, cool. Rewrite the ad. Try a different ad angle, right? Try a different messaging. Try a different hook, right? Write a different ad body, right? Have a different CTA. Those are things that you can control. Very easy, very quite simple, right? Landing page. If that's not converting, your opt-in rate's not good, rewrite the copywriting, right? Rewrite the page. Rewrite the page and see what on there. Is there a misalignment between the ad and what's said on the landing page? Is there confliction there, right? And then if they're getting leads, we're getting qualified leads here. If we're not getting MQLs, right, marketing qualified leads, okay, cool. What can we change in the messaging once again to ensure that we are getting qualified leads? So you can just keep testing and testing and testing and testing. So I'll show you guys this in a future video, but there's a creative pipeline that you ideate, you script, you film, edit, launch, you track numbers, and then you reiterate. That creative process is a closed loop, and then you find what is winning in the person's ad account, and you reiterate. So I will show you guys that in a future video. We don't need to get too deep into this. Just know that you have control over these metrics here and that you can tweak it. But if their booking rate is off, okay, cool. to sit down with the business owner to review the booking process. What can be improved there, right? If it's off benchmark, how can we improve that number? And then the appointment show rate, right? If the appointments aren't showing, what can we do in between the call? Was the framing set right? Was there reminders set in place for them to show up? And then is the offer made and then the deal closed? I mean, ask them to look into their sales process and see how they can improve that, because those are things that you can help guide them on. But your key thing, if you, within the first week of working with that client, can go into their business, do an audit, and isolate the key link within their business that is the broken piece of their chain, and help them and help consult them to fix that chain, you are inherently going to be, one, deemed as more valuable. They're going to stay with you longer because they see you as an expert. They don't see you as a button pusher. You are proactive. You give them active ideas and solutions to fix that problem. And then your advertising is going to work. Okay? So this isn't like, oh yeah, tweak your fucking hook or tweak your fucking shit. Yeah, that's part of it, dude. But like, the other part of it is this whole thing. This whole thing, bro. Like, you got to know this. You got to know this all the way through. So what I recommend you to do is to write down these metrics. And, you know, if you don't know these things, ask your business, your client, ask the business that you're a part of, ask to see how you can learn these parts of the business, because in order to be one of the best and to get paid more, in order to make more money, in order to get access to these big boy deals, you got to be good. You know, you got to be able to show your worth, right? Because if somebody's going to pay you $5K a month, $10K a month, like, you got to be able to produce like $50K a month, $100K a month worth of, you know, results. So yeah, I wish I knew this earlier on, because for whatever reason, I thought advertising was some sort of magical like thing. I just thought, like, I don't know, like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? But there are key components. This is why picking a good, you know, business owner to work with is really key. Or number two, working with the company earlier on. I wish I did this. I wish I went into a company that was an agency, and I wish that I could have learned how to run paid advertising from them, because I would have got paid to learn at the same exact time. So yeah, if you work with a good client that's business savvy, that understands this stuff, you will 100% see results. But if you're working with a client that has other issues within their business, you can at least guide them on the process on how to make sure that they get results. Okay? So again, if you liked videos like this, I'm trying to drop sauce like this regularly. So make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that you go check out the page to see other videos and trainings on media buying, and you know, how to turn this into a craft that you can actually make millions of dollars from. I mean, I've done it. I've made over $1 million with this so far, so it's been really great. So yeah, guys, I'll see you in another video. Peace.